Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. The Paris Olympics have been our best ever, at least in terms of gold medals. So what does it mean for the companies spending a fortune to promote their brands during the coverage? And what's it mean for Nine Media? Ben Willee is the General Manager and Media Director of Spinach Advertising Agency. Ben, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
G'day, Sean. Great to be back.
What have you made of the coverage, starting with Nine's free-to-air coverage as well as its streaming service?
I'd just like to open up by saying what an incredible Olympics. This has now been the most successful Olympics in Australia's history, if your measurement KPI is gold medals. And I just want to start by saying fantastic and congratulations to all of those athletes that have worked their guts out to make us proud.
Totally.
Look, I think Nine's done an excellent job. This was always going to be the trickiest. They paid $305 million for Olympic broadcast package, which includes Paris, LA in 2028, and the big one in Brisbane in 2032. And they paid about $305 million. And given the time difference between Paris and the east coast of Australia, that's been the trickiest to monetise for them. And I think they've done a pretty good result. You know, they're claiming that it was $120 million in costs just for Paris alone. And Mike Sneesby's come out recently and said that across television, radio and online, they've written $140 million in revenue. So if all of that's true, it's a fantastic result. And they've done a great job amortising that cost across more than just what used to be TV, across all of their other assets in audio and in online news and printed news.
Okay, so those numbers, does that mean they've actually made a profit from it, or is 120 the production costs, so that's outside the 305 million rights to the games?
No, that's included in the 305 million, but I think it's a big call to say that they've made a profit out of the games because privately the Channel 7 execs tell you that you don't ever make a profit, but what the games does is that media companies are their own biggest clients, and it gives them all of these moments and connections with consumers, which they can use to promote all of their other assets. And they're doing that very aggressively on TV now with, you know, their next lot of TV shows. And they're doing it pretty well to promote people back to their audio broadcasts. So if you're driving somewhere or you want to listen to it on a podcast. So the virtuous circle has been quite successful for them. And I think we'll see much more of that in LA and in Brisbane.
What do you think it means for Stan? Stan, of course, one of the original streaming services in Australia, along with Netflix. Plenty of others out there now, though Stan has still maintained its position pretty well. What does the Olympics mean for Stan?
Well, again, it's the same thing, right? They for Stan, it means that they can people watching the Olympics on Stan and certain events there will get promoted to other Stan original content. And they will hopefully stay. They will hopefully subscribe if they're not subscribers otherwise. And hopefully the producers of Stan come up with some sort of documentary about how awesome it's going to be for the triathletes to swim in the Brisbane River. I can't wait to see that one.
Absolutely. What about the advertisers? Funny, I had this discussion with Michael and I said, I don't watch free-to-air TV. I stream everything, but suddenly I'm back to free-to-air because what Nine has done is curate content really well for me in the morning and at night time, but the ads are really jarring for me. I'm finding them really difficult to watch. Having said that, I can probably name the 4 or 5 main advertisers, and I like NRMA at the moment. I'm happy with Woolies and Aldi. I've never thought as much about Aldi, so in a sense, it's working on me, though it is kind of irritating me. How do you think do you think they're getting value for money?
Perish the thought that the ads are jarring. I'm outraged by that, Sean. Advertising is a very important part of this ecosystem, and you can watch this Olympics live and free because of advertising.
Yes.
No, sorry, I digress. Look, I think the advertisers have done well out of this. The good news and the bad news is that Nine have had to curate content. So there are probably people, the ratings are good. I mean, it's a bit tricky to measure the ratings compared to previous Olympics because we have a new total TV system that measures ratings also for streaming products as well. But, the numbers are saying that on average 10.5 million viewers are tuning in at some point every day. So that's fantastic news for advertisers. And the other thing that we as advertisers don't always get is the level of engagement you get with an event like Olympics. There's a huge amount of excitement. It's fantastic to watch Australia do well against the rest of the world, especially the Poms and the Yanks. So from an advertising point of view, it's really engaged content and it's worth paying a premium for. And that's what you've seen. And, advertisers will often save up money to invest in the Olympics because they know that their brand health metrics will increase significantly as a result of being next to such great content.
Stay with me, Ben. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Ben Willee from Spinach Advertising. What about everything that's not Olympics? That must diminish somewhat. I mean, I can't remember watching anything on television that hasn't been Olympics related over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, there was a time in the days before streaming where the Olympics used to command between 80 and 85% of all television viewing.
Wow.
When it was on. So it wouldn't be a stretch to suggest that the most proportion of, video content consumed on screens is definitely the Olympics. And the great news is we don't have to, my son's a rower, so he watches a lot of rowing. I like to watch beach volleyball because I'm really interested in it as a sport. So we can indulge in all of those sorts of things in a million different ways, and we can insert ads dynamically, and we can really optimise that and create great connections with brands. And you've described some brands earlier who I think, in my opinion, are doing very well with their Olympic sponsorship packages.
So what do you expect in 4 years' time? You'll still be watching the beach volleyball, Ben, I'm sure, because you love it as a sport. Do you think that there will be a very much on-demand streaming style coverage? Do you think free-to-air in 4 years will still be, because I'm sure the Nine main channel is the dominant player in this Olympics. Will that still be the case? Do you think we'll have the same advertisers back? I suppose, what have we learnt from this Olympics for the next one?
Look, there's no doubt that, the dynamic of free-to-air is changing, but I don't agree with the people who say free-to-air won't exist. They're the same people who say printed newspapers won't exist. I mean, they will exist in some form, but you will still have a relationship with that big screen in the living room, and you'll still get your content directly from Nine or Stan or a combination of the two. So that'll still be a really valuable opportunity for advertisers. The time zones will be a little bit different, so there'll be a bit more watching of events live, and that's better for ratings, because at the moment we sort of wake up in the morning and go, wow, what an incredible night, and then watch highlights. When the time zones are better, we'll be able to watch more content and consume more hours, and that's good for the broadcaster and good for the advertiser. And I think in LA we'll also see condom manufacturers jumping over themselves to supply the 300,000 condoms required for the athletes' village as well too.
Why do you say that, Ben?
Oh, I almost fell off my chair when I read somewhere that apparently the IOC has supplied the athletes' village with 300,000 condoms.
But I've got to say, I did read further into that, and one of the Australians, I think, was interviewed and said it's not quite what you think, because often if some of the poorer countries, they hoard the condoms and take them home because they're actually very difficult to access at home. And so that made me rethink the 300,000 number. I actually started thinking, oh, maybe they should double that, because if it's actually a service for people that they can take home to poorer countries.
Well, that could be dangerous. You wouldn't want to be in the room next to someone hoarding them and you didn't get your own allocation. Crikey.
Taking a broader look at the advertising market, how tough is it for traditional media at the moment? You just said free-to-air won't die, and there are certainly naysayers out there that suggest that. It will remain in some form, but what's the market look like at the moment, particularly for those legacy products?
Yeah, look, the ad market is under pressure, and we report through Standard Media Index, which covers what we think is about 80% of the market, which is most advertising agencies. And the market's pretty soft at the moment. I mean, we have just avoided a advertising recession, that is 2 quarters of negative growth, but only by a whisker. So we are really finding ourselves a few percentage points down on the same period, or a few percentage points up. But we're really going slowly. What's changing is the way that money is being allocated. So it's being allocated away from traditional linear TV and traditional linear radio. And a lot more of it's going into digital outdoor, a lot more of it's going into catch-up TV, into podcasts like this podcast. So what we say is people still watch about 2 hours of screens every day and they still listen to a lot of audio content. They just now have the control over where they get it from. And that trend we're going to continue to see happen. So as more young people get older and their habits become the norm, we're just going to see a lot less people being told what to watch and when, and they'll choose when they watch and why. We'll also see a lot more advertising on Netflix. We'll see it on Disney Plus, and we'll also see it on other paid streamers. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on the video market, and that's going to be a really interesting watch, especially for the 7, 9s and 10s of the world, who will again see more competition in an area that they've done pretty well in recently.
Interesting. Ben, thanks for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thanks very much for having me.
That was Ben Willee, General Manager and Media Director of Spinach Advertising Agency. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.